stuck with you. The storm outside was relentless. Thick sheets of rain pounding against the castle windows, the howling wind, the rattling glass panes, as if it wanted to tear into the very walls of Hogwarts. Most students had taken shelter in their dormitories, curled up beneath warm blankets or huddled around the common room fireplaces. You, however, were not so lucky. Unbelievable. You murmured mostly to yourself, hugging your arms around yourself. Trapped in an abandoned classroom with none other than Draco Malfoy, your ex-boyfriend, the exact same ex-boyfriend who had once held your hand in the hidden corners of the castle, whispered stolen secrets against your skin, and kissed you in the moonlit corridors like you were the only thing that mattered. The same ex-boyfriend who had shattered your heart when he decided that whatever you had wasn't exactly meant to last. And now, you were stuck with him. Draco leaned against the opposite wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. His silver eyes flickered towards the door, then back to you. You can stop glaring at me. It's not like I planned this. You scoffed. Of course not. That would require effort, something you don't have. His jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The two of you had been paired for an assignment in potions, sent to retrieve an ingredient from Professor Slughorn's storage. The problem? Well, the moment you stepped inside the door, it slammed shut, locking itself with a spell you didn't recognize, and now you were waiting for anybody to realize you were missing. You glanced towards the window, rainwater streaming down in thick drips. Looks like we'll be stuck here for a while. Draco exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his bottom hair. Brilliant, he said sarcastically. Silence stretched between you, thick and tense and cold. Ironically, the room was also cold. The candlelight flickered and the wind howled through a crack in the stone wall. You shifted uncomfortably. This is ridiculous. Draco arched a brow. What is? At this? Us? Standing here like strangers when we were... You cut yourself off, hating the way your voice wavered. You swallowed, straightening your shoulders. Never mind. But Draco had caught it. His gaze softened just a fraction. When we were what? You hesitated. The words were at the tip of your tongue, the ones you never got to say when everything between you fell apart. When everything used to mean something. Instead, you shrugged. Doesn't matter. Draco stared at you for a long moment before looking away, exhaling through his nose. Fine. Of course, that's how it always went. With him, walls up, emotions locked away like they never, ever even existed. You sat on the edge of a wooden desk, kicking your feet against it absentmindedly. Why did you do it? You asked. Draco frowned. Do what? End things? Like the way you did? His posture stiffened. I told you already. No, you gave me an excuse, he corrected, voice sharper now. Something about not working out or not being a good idea, but you never actually told me why. Draco's fingers curled against his sleeves, his entire body wound tight. He wasn't used to being questioned. Not like this. You waited, watching the way his throat bobbled as he swallowed. And then finally, so quietly that you almost missed it, he said something. I was protecting you. Your breath hitched. From what? Draco turned away, his profile cast in the flickering candlelight. Shadows clung to the sharp angles of his face, making him look almost haunted. From me. Something cold turned in your stomach. Draco, you don't get it. He cut in, voice laced with something raw. You don't understand what it's like to have people expect things from you, to have a family name that dictates every choice you make, to know that no matter what you want, you don't get a say in the end. You frowned, pushing off the desk. That's not true. You always have a choice. You always had a choice. He leaned out a hollow laugh. Did I? The weight between his words settled with you. You had known, of course, that Draco had pressures, expectations that came with being a Malfoy, but you never thought it was this deep. You swallowed. You don't have to shut me out. Draco's gaze finally met yours, and something braked within his silver irises. I did, because if I didn't, if I let you stay, he hesitated with a shaky exhale, you would have gotten hurt. Your heart twisted. I was already hurt. His expression crumbled for a second before he masked it again, shifting back to the cool, composed Draco Malfoy that everyone knew. Another silence. This one much heavier. You should have been furious. You should have told him that he was an idiot for deciding things for you, for pushing you away instead of trusting you. But part of you understood. Part of you still cared. You sighed, rubbing your arms against the cold that was starting to seep in into the winds, cutting through the cracks of the stone. Draco must have noticed because, after a moment's hesitation, he shrugged off his cloak and held it out to you. You blinked at him. What are you doing? You're freezing. I'm fine, you answered back. He rolled his eyes to the back of his skull. Marilyn, you're so stubborn. Just take it. After a beat, he did. His cloak was warm. It smelled like firewood. The scent of the old library books and something distinctly him. You pulled it tightly around yourself. Thanks. Draco didn't respond, but he caught the way his jaw relaxed just slightly, like he was relieved you took it. Another silence stretched between the two of you, but this time it wasn't so heavy. Maybe, just maybe, you weren't the only one that still cared. A sudden click echoed through the room, and your door creaked open. You both turned towards it, startled. Well, Draco said after a beat. Looks like we're free. You hesitated. There was so much left unsaid, but there wasn't time. You stepped towards the door. Draco's voice stopped you. When? You turned. His expression was unreadable. His fingers twitched like he wanted to reach out to you but didn't know how. This doesn't have to be the end of our conversation. Your breath caught. For the first time in a long time, there was something in his voice that you hadn't heard in ages. Hope. He didn't respond. Instead, you gave him a look that said, not yet, but maybe. And without another word, you stepped out into the corridor, leaving Draco standing in the dim candlelight watching you. The corridors of Hogwarts were eerily quiet at this hour. You walked briskly against the steps of your footsteps echoing against the stone walls. Draco's cloak still remained wrapped around your shoulders, the scent clinging to you. You should have returned it. You should have handed it back the moment the door unlocked, walking away without another word. But you didn't. Because for some reason, letting go of that one small piece of him felt harder than it probably should have been. As you reached the entrance to your common room, you hesitated. The conversation in that locked classroom had unraveled something inside of you. Something you weren't exactly sure you were ready to face. Draco had pushed you away. But not because he stopped caring. He did it because he thought it would protect you. You would have gotten hurt. His words echoed in your mind, tangled between the weight of everything unsaid between you. You sighed. Dwelling on it wouldn't change anything, would it? With one last glance down the corridor, you whispered the password and slipped inside, disappearing into the warmth of the common room. The next morning, you fully expected Draco to pretend last night had never even happened. That was how he operated, shoving emotions into a locked box and throwing away the key. But when you entered the Great Hall for breakfast, you caught his gaze from across the room. He was sitting at a Slytherin table, hands clasped together, expression unreadable. Your stomach twisted. You weren't sure what you expected. A nod? A smirk? Some sort of acknowledgement that you had spoken, really spoken, since the first time since the breakup? Instead, Draco did something unexpected. He stood. You froze as he made his way towards you, ignoring the curious glances from his housemates. The Great Hall wasn't exactly a place for private conversations, but that didn't seem to deter him. You barely had time to react before he was standing in front of you, silver eyes flickering with something you couldn't quite place. "We need to talk," he said. Your breath caught. Now? Yes. Come with me. You hesitated, glancing around. You could feel the weight of several pairs of eyes on you, whispers already forming amongst the students. Draco must have noticed because he exhaled sharply, lowering his voice. "Please." Something in his tone made your resolve falter. Without another word, you followed him out the Great Hall. Draco led you to the empty corridor near the astronomy tower. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting golden patches on the stone floor. He turned to face you, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit you had learned to recognize long ago. "I meant what I said last night," he said finally, "about why I did what I did." You steadied him carefully. "I know." His jaw clenched. "Then you know it wasn't because I wanted to." Your chest tightened. "Then why, Draco?" He exhaled, glancing away. "Because it's not safe for you to be with me." You frowned. "Draco, I can handle myself." His eyes snapped back, something sharper in his gaze. "No, you don't understand." He took a step closer, voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know what's coming." A chill ran down your spine. You don't know why, but the words, the way he said it, it creeped you out. "Then tell me," you asked. He hesitated. You could see the war inside him, the pull between wanting to protect you and wanting to finally be honest. Then he exhaled. "My family, they're involved in dark things. And sooner or later, I wouldn't have a choice. I'll be pulled into it, whether I wish to or not." His hands curled into fists. "I didn't want that for you." Your breath caught. "Draco, I tried to push you away," he continued, his voice quieter now. "I tried to make you hate me so it wouldn't hurt as much, but my love, the truth is, I never stopped caring about you." The words settled into his heart. You stared at him, heart pounding in your chest. "Why are you telling me this now?" Draco hesitated, but then he exhaled. "Because last night, when we were locked in that room, it was the first time in a long time that I felt like things weren't falling apart." You felt a lump rise in your throat. It would be so easy to let yourself fall back into this, to let yourself believe that things would go back to the way they were, but could they? Did you even want that? You bit your lip. "Draco, if you care about me, then why in Maryland are you shutting me out?" His expression faltered. "I don't." "Yes, you do." You cut him off. You shook your head. "You say you want to protect me, but you never let me choose for myself. You just assume leaving me in the dark is better." Draco opened his mouth and closed it. For the first time in a long time, he had no argument, no witty comeback. You sighed, taking a step forward. And then you took one back. "I don't know what you want from me." Draco swallowed. "I want..." He trailed. Looking down before he spoke, his voice was softer. I just don't want to lose you completely. The confession hit you like a punch to the throat. You stared at him, at the boy who once meant everything to you, the boy who somehow still had a hold on your heart. But you couldn't be the one to fix this, not when he was holding back. He took a shaky breath. I don't know if we can go back to the way things were. His face fell. But, he continued, if you're willing to actually try to stop keeping me in the dark, then maybe we can figure something out. Hope flickered behind his silver eyes. Maybe, he echoed. He exhaled, a small smile glistening against your lips. Maybe. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a perfect solution. But it was something. Something that you haven't had in a long time. He studied you for a moment, then nodded. All right. After a moment, he reached out, not quite touching you, but close enough. You could still feel the warmth of his hand near yours. You didn't pull away. Maybe things weren't fixed. Maybe they would never be fixed, but for now, you're both standing in the same place. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like that could be enough.